Welcome to a Movie Babies special college edition, and special for another way. Devin Spencer, no April Foolin', is not present today. He is doing some Easter bullshit with his family, and couldn't make it to this rousing discussion and viewing of Ready Player One, Steven Spielberg's interpretation of this popular book that my two guests have read, and I tried to read and couldn't get very far into. My good friends Bobby Yost, for one time, you've movie babied before.
One time, I got to yell in on another episode as I was passing through.
Oh, that's right.
I think on one thing.
Cameoed, and then you got to feature.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then my good friend from childhood, Aaron Walborg, is finally here in Bellingham.
Whoop whoop.
Ready to throw in his 2 cents about this film. We just went to the Regal. We had a lot of sugar. I was buzzing. Yeah, that was long.
It was a long movie. I was full of pizza. Ready to fall asleep the entire time.
Did anybody nod off?
I think I would have if the people sitting right next to me hadn't been pointing out every single reference in the entire movie.
Oh, you had that.
So that was keeping me awake. I think they were also chugging some brews, so they're getting animated.
It was like a family, though, right?
Yeah, it was like a family. It was really weird.
Like a dad and a
the dad
daughter
kept
and a
pointing at
kid.
stuff and be like, "Oh, that's from this."
And they were drinking?
I saw a couple beer bottles.
To be fair, they were having a lot more fun than us.
Yeah,
That's
they
true.
were.
That's true. We were pretty staunch the whole... I could tell, like, our vibe the whole time was like, oh, this is kind of fun. Okay, this is kind of like Willy Wonka. Okay, all right. Fucking...
Yeah.
We got over it really fast.
Yeah,
So, it's been a while since I've seen a Spielberg movie. Maybe that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
The last thing he made was... What? I can't even remember. Not the horse movie.
What would it have been? There was one not too long ago.
I might be IMDb in...
Jaws?
Yeah. Let's see.
Yeah, there was a guy since the horse movie. I want to say Secretariat, but I know that's just a BoJack Horseman thing.
I'm way out of the loop on movies, so I don't know what the horse movie is.
Black
Black Beauty? Is that
Black Beauty. Yeah.
Post was the one that he was up for last year,
Okay.
but BFG was the last thing that I
That's
remember.
right. And I did not see that.
Yeah,
I heard
War
it.
Horse was the movie that we were
Okay.
talking
Okay.
about.
Wait, he did BFG?
Yeah.
He did.
Like,
Yeah.
Heard it was not good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Well, every Roald Dahl adaptation I've seen has not been good.
Yeah.
And the books are incredible.
the witch one is not good.
Witches?
I haven't seen
It's
that since I
awesome.
was a kid, actually, and I
Okay.
remember it really freaked me out, and I felt
Yeah.
too old to be freaked out by it. So perhaps that one was good. I haven't
Yeah.
revisited it.
I felt the same way at 27.
So Spielberg's in fairly good practice. It's not been a long time since he's done his thing, but he brought with him the dude that wrote the Avengers movie and
the first Avengers.
like X-Men 2 to write this screenplay with the guy who wrote the book too, right?
Yeah, Ernest Cline co-wrote the screenplay. Although I wonder, with things like that, him being the author of the book, how much of it was like the other guy wrote a screenplay and basically gave it to him and said, "Okay, what do you want to change here?" And basically got a screenplay credit for
very well could be
as
right.
part of their deal. Funny enough, I watched that Avengers movie last night
Oh, really?
for the first time since the theater. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It was fun.
A lot of standing around and talking.
A lot of standing around talking. Although I watched the one that comes right before that in that series directly before it.
One of the Iron Man movies,
It wasn't. It was
Captain America.
Captain America.
Yeah.
And that was not fun.
Okay,
That was very boring. So I don't know if it was just a matter of being better than Captain America. But it was surprisingly fun.
So on a side note, speaking of Captain America, when I was in China, I had a woman in China say that I reminded her of Captain America before he got strong. Which is perhaps the best unintentional backhanded compliment I've ever gotten.
How do you respond to
I'm
that?
actually so weak that I need CG.
I hope you threw a shield at her. I was noticing in that movie that he takes every opportunity possible to throw himself on a grenade. Anytime there's a grenade, he's like jumping on it. And I came to the conclusion that he's just suicidal.
Yeah.
In that
Yeah.
movie, he just has a death wish.
Dark times for Cap. I want to, first of all, about Ready Player One, I kind of want to know what your guys' experiences with the book was, because I had all the intentions to read that book as like maybe the first novel I had read in a really long time. I mostly read like nonfiction stuff, and I was kind of geared up when I saw this trailer, or like however it popped onto my radar. I was like, oh, I should read that book. That'll be fun. And I borrowed Bobby's copy and promptly gave it to Kyle to finish it for me because I just got a little bit bored.
How far did you get?
Like, not maybe the first 50 or 60 pages.
Okay. Sure.
It was like so referential that I was like, this is probably the delight of this to most people, and it's driving me up the wall. But you guys dug it as a book.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really liked the, and it's funny because I actually am stuck on electronics books mostly these days, so I don't get to read a lot of fiction anymore. And that was the first fiction book that I sat down and read over the course of like a couple days in a long time.
Oh, so you just sat down and...
So I powered through it. Yeah.
It was the same for me. I read it on flights to and from
Okay.
China. So in one trip, I finished the book.
Cool.
And same thing where I haven't been doing. I've been reading a lot of Ramona Quimby to my kids.
Okay, sure.
And so we made it through that whole saga. But yeah, I haven't just for my own enjoyment read a book in a while. And to be fair, I read this book probably 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So like my memories of it are a little fuzzy, especially like comparing to the movie. But I really enjoyed reading it. And yeah, the referential stuff was super fun.
Yeah.
And like I got caught up in this kind of like feeling of reading it, and you're reading it, and the characters in the book are having to research this stuff from the 80s. And you get caught up in thinking, I lived this.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have to
I know how this
research
works.
it. Yeah. Of course, it's written by someone that lived it, and even more so. And I'm sure there are like a million references that went right over my head. But there is this satisfying feeling of being like, I know about that, because like they're referencing stuff constantly, and it's like a lot of them are just kind of moving past, and you catch it if you catch it, and
Right.
Yeah.
so it's this fun feeling of like I'm in the club.
Okay. As a reader, did you ever feel like, oh, this is like walking into a fucking Hot Topic? Like, all this shit is not cool anymore once it gets like pulled off the shelf. Like, you know what I mean? Like when you're into something and you're kind of like in the club on it, and then it kind of gets out to the greater context, and you're like, well, I don't like this anymore.
Yeah, I'm worried that's what the movie may do for.
Oh, okay.
the book.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I feel like the references in the book were like old enough that I felt legit for having lived through them.
Uh-huh.
Right.
So I didn't get so much of that. But also, I feel like I read it before it was cool.
Yeah.
That's No, I had a coworker recommend it to me, so I found it and read it, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. But it is one of those things is it like gets pumped up more and more. Just like anything, it kind of takes some of the cool away from it.
Yeah, I think I'm not too worried because I know that like from the movie, things like there were a lot of Back to the Future references, and it's like, well, if you haven't seen Back to the Future at this point, you should sit down and watch it, right? Like it's not like that's not as much of a in the club thing. And I know that anybody that's like, oh, I should really listen to Rush is going to, and they're going to hate it.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried about that. In a lot of the stuff in the book, it got to a point where there were some things. It's like, okay, come on. I remember having a couple of those moments, but I got really caught up in the adventure aspect of it and how much it felt like playing a video game or something like that and being on this adventure story.
Yeah, the adventure was,
and the
was good.
book did a great job of that.
Okay.
I liked the book a lot less when I looked up, or when I realized that the guy that wrote this was a guy that also was in a documentary I saw where he's trying to, and I'm pretty sure it's the same guy, where he's trying to track down every single NES game that was made, and he's driving around the country in his DeLorean, dressed up basically like Marty McFly. And
Okay.
like
Oh,
that
no,
on its
yeah.
own is like, okay, this guy's maybe a little too into it, but he's also acting like a prick to like everybody that he comes across. And
He's like trying to buy games off
So
of people to
he-
have the biggest collection.
he's trying to get every single Nintendo game, but he's he's not like just going on eBay and buying them. He's trying to like go to stores and collect them, which is
Okay.
commendable. But he also
Antique Roadshow style.
yeah, he just is like an asshole the whole time. And
That's a
somebody
bummer.
correct me if I'm wrong. If
I have
that's
no
not the
idea.
same guy.
I don't know,
Yeah,
Let's go
on
with it.
Movie Baby Land.
Anybody who collects things is usually a like flaming prick.
Especially
Yeah.
if they're driving a DeLorean dressed like Marty McFly while doing so.
I like that there was a line in the movie that was like, you can't be that guy that dresses like your favorite movie.
Was that a PCU reference?
Oh
It's
yeah,
like,
it's like wearing the
you
band
can't be
shirt.
the guy wearing the band
I
shirt
hope
at the
it went that deep.
gutter.
To me, watching the movie and a little bit of my first couple chapters of the book, it was very much like surface level 80s stuff. Like
Yeah.
if you looked up a Wikipedia article about what the 80s were in a nutshell, like it was all the top posted things.
Right.
Was there anything in the book where you're like, oh, I don't even remember that?
They went into a whole like Gundam section, and I have no knowledge
Yeah.
there. So
Okay.
that I knew there were references flying that I'm like, I
Yeah.
Gotcha.
don't know, don't care.
Gotcha.
The video game stuff went a lot deeper than it did in the movie. Like the challenges. Do you remember? I was struggling to remember this, but I feel like in the book it was like they would find the key, but then there was a challenge on top of that after finding the key.
Yeah, again, it's been a while, but I
And,
think that was they find the location of it, and then you had to beat the challenge, which I guess was
Right.
kind of corollary in how they had that race in the movie,
Yeah.
and the adventure video game.
So in the book, it's more. I don't know if you got this part, but it's more like there are video game challenges at pretty much every one of the challenges. There are challenges that are
It's like Nick Arcade.
yeah, pretty much. And then there are other ones where it's like they're in a movie scene and they have to say
Oh,
and
yeah.
act out the movie part.
And that's where I felt like the movie didn't give this, like you missed, in the book there's a lot of the characters like researching the 80s and researching Halliday's life and like his interests. So they're like watching these movies every night and all these old shows, all this
Right.
totally steeped in all this 80s stuff, looking for any clues that will help them in this huge hunt. And I felt like, you know, they had that, what did they call the library or whatever they went to
Yeah.
of his memories.
Mm.
But I felt like that didn't really cover this whole culture of the egg hunters.
Right.
Like,
Where they would have like a
Just delving
notebook
in.
full of like all of their notes on every single
Yeah.
thing.
Gotcha.
Um,
And it was them in the real world having to go to like the video store and stuff like
I
that.
think they mostly do it in the Oasis because you can access every movie
Yeah.
or whatever.
But it
I-
was like the Wade Watts in the book would be like, oh, okay, it's time to go to sleep, so I'm gonna play Joust for like 6 hours before I fall asleep
Yeah,
and go
okay.
to school.
And that was another, for whatever reason in the book, I liked how they talked about how the Oasis was, like, it provided education to all these
Yeah.
people that didn't have, like, good schools in their communities, because everyone goes to school in the Oasis. And, like, to me, that was, for some reason, a big part of the story, I felt like, or this
Yeah.
whole world. And they didn't touch on that at all.
All they
Like-
did was talk about like revamping the high schools. There was
Yeah.
that weird negotiating point.
Yeah.
They didn't even really go to school.
They
But
never
that's
showed
what they
them at school
normally
at all.
all go
Yeah.
to school, and then they go do their, like, video game adventure stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the first key was like
Yeah.
on planet with their school, but weren't there like
Yeah.
multiple planets that were all the same? They had these schools or something. I can't remember.
It was. I think there was the one planet that's just covered with every school.
Okay.
And that's where he finds the first key in the book. But yeah, in this it was just like opens with like, guess what? Time to race King Kong.
Right.
Can you do it?
I suppose, like, for the expedience of a film that's going to already be 2.5 hours long, if there was, like, a school element, it would have been a little bit,
Yeah.
like...
Yeah.
Starting with a
Too
kid
much.
bored in school is
Yeah.
not a good way to entice your audience.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get it. We've
But-
seen school.
Yeah, hey, there was a lot changed. All the challenges were changed. Like the whole thing about him in the book, they don't meet until way later.
Our high five team.
Our high five
main
team
guys.
is like they're competitors. They're all against each other with the exception of Wade and H are friends. But every other one of them, like the two brothers that they meet, they don't meet until like way in the end of the and same with the girl. He meets her as like the climax of the movie or the book.
Yeah.
As in real life.
In real life,
Okay,
yeah. Yeah.
Is the villain the same? This the
Yeah, it's,
Nolan Schwinkter guy?
yeah, it's like the corporation is trying to take this over or beat anybody else to it so that they can maintain their like weird, debt slavery kind of situation that they have,
Gotcha.
where people are going into the Oasis with jackhammers and like building things, which is another weird thing. I don't understand.
Yeah, I
how that
didn't
works.
really get that.
Yeah.
The bit about him like severing the relationship with his Halliday with his like co-founder guy, the Lord of the Rings dude, was that in the book?
That was done differently. I don't think it was that he had to give up all of his shares. It was just that he like fired him from the company and they weren't friends anymore. There was the whole thing where like Halliday had gone on a date with this girl and then the other guy ended up marrying her, and
Okay,
then they
I
just
didn't
like drifted apart.
I didn't catch that's how that went down.
That was more of like a turning point in the book where, I mean, I guess it kind of was in the movie too, but that was emphasized more where once that happened and the guy married this girl, their relationship kind of dissolved because that guy, Augie or whatever, was his only friend, like his only real life person he could communicate with. And so the company just kind of dissolved at that point, or like he was asked to leave maybe the company, but it wasn't like he was just some guy.
I feel like they threw a lot of information like that in the middle of an action sequence or something where like a lot of that stuff got lost on me.
I think in general, any of the like personal relationships in the movie were like really sped through.
Yeah, the romantic relationship between Artemis is the main gal, and Z was like there was nothing tangibly like romantic there for me.
Really unsatisfying.
Yeah,
I like too how it was just like, oh, you're part of the resistance now, and then you get nothing from that at all.
Yeah.
It's just like
she had like she had basically like a Matrix
Yeah.
revolution rebellion at her warehouse.
Yeah.
But it was just her and a bald guy with face tattoos.
Who's getting the groceries?
That was my biggest laugh of the movie.
Yeah. I got the groceries. Got big face tats. That was great.
So, yeah, her thing when he was trying to get too close to her in the Oasis was like, my dad was taken advantage of by IOI.
Yeah.
OIO, what?
So that's their thing, is they like would buy people's debt and then put them in these centers where they're like working in the Oasis for them.
Okay.
But then you can never get out because they're paying for your room and board while you're in this prison cell. It's basically like privatized prison stuff.
He got sick in the real world and died.
Yeah.
Because they were not tending
Was that
to
part of the book? I don't remember.
I don't remember anything like that with her character in the book, and could be wrong, but I think she just didn't want to see. She just like had more of a moral high ground where she like didn't want to see this company take it over.
Was she trying to destroy the Oasis?
No, she just didn't. Well, I don't know. Maybe in the movie.
Oh, she was just trying to destroy the company. The IOI company. Okay, got it. I was really disappointed that the T.J. Miller voice guy didn't get a reality moment. I thought they were going to cut to that guy and he was going to be like something much different than how he really looks.
Yeah, I was expecting that.
Real T.J. Miller.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. There was this like thing that they did, this like kind of like, we know it's 2018, we know what's up kind of moment where like Spielberg was definitely patting him on the back being like, oh, H is that funny lesbian character from Master of None.
Yeah.
Like it's in the Avatar is this big hulking like orc kind of character, but in real world it's this character. And I was like, and they like kind of paused the movie for a minute to be like, look what we did.
Record scratch.
Yeah.
At that moment.
Yeah,
but
that
was pretty true
is
to
in the book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. I what bothers me is that there's never the reverse of that. It's always like, oh, take off the like armor and it's a girl under there. It's never a dude who uses a female avatar.
Yeah.
And if it is, it's always like some kind of catfishy, like jokey thing.
Yeah.
But like there's never a time where they like kind of I would let them pat themselves in the back if that character was like this gal in the Avatar and then it turns out to be just this dude who wanted to identify as this gal in the Oasis or whatever. It's like you can pat yourself on the back for that. That's kind of like a 2018 like representation thing. But that was like a weird moment, and despite the fact that like she's a very funny in that show and like a very great actress in that comedy context. Her trying to do an action movie was like
It was pretty
weird
ridiculous.
casting,
Yeah.
weird choice. I didn't particularly care for that.
Yeah, it was not the best way they could have done that, or like even handled the reveal. It was pretty like that scene just dragged on a little bit too long, where she throws the door open.
Yeah.
Um,
It's like the camera's just like, you're getting this, right?
Yeah,
You get it?
guys,
The big
guys.
tough guy is this chick.
It's like they should have
Alright.
had her look straight at the camera.
Done some eyebrows. Yeah. Not that I didn't think she was, her lines were really funny. She's a cool actress or whatever. It was just like, this is
It
weird.
felt a little strange.
The other thing that I think we all collectively thought was very funny is like, so they set up this world where everybody's in this game so frequently throughout their day that you assume it's going to be like a Wall-E situation where like in reality they're all kind of like withering away or kind of like physically unfit and kind of maybe even like really like physically deficient because they spend all this time in the game. They're all very attractive people.
Yeah.
And the Artemis, her whole thing is like, I don't want you to see me, is like, well, I'm not who I look like in the game, which is like this rail thin, like kind of pixie dream gal. And then in the real world, she's that, but with a little pink spot on her eye.
Yeah.
Yeah, a very slightly visible birthmark.
Well,
In the book, that's emphasized
Yeah.
a little further. It's like her half of her face is like. I interpreted that
I
differently
pictured like
from reading it.
Gorbachev.
okay.
times 10 or
Yeah.
something like that.
Just like.
Not so much in the movie.
No, it's just like very much like a full-on babe.
Yeah.
And the dude is like very like hunky and everything, and like the whole squad is very like cute. Everybody's very cute. I was
Yeah.
like, that's kind of a missed opportunity to do like a dystopian world where like the problem with this society is like we're fucking up because we're in the game too much.
What for someone that didn't read the entirety of the book, how did you feel about the dystopian aspect? Did it seem like this world was very bad the way they built it?
We didn't get a sense of that. It seemed like the trailer towers
Yeah.
were cool looking.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
I lived in a trailer tower, I'd be pretty stoked.
They had Pizza Hut delivered by drones. Maybe the most unrealistic thing about this entire movie to me is that Pizza Hut is still in business
Yeah.
50 years from now.
Yeah, it's 2045.
Or 2045.
They're talking about there's the cornstarch wars, there's the broadband with battles.
That's right.
And so all these kind of like dystopian things have kind of left the world pretty much the way it is.
I feel like
Yeah.
in the book there was more about the dystopia, I think.
Like
I don't
people
remember.
were like dying from like the stacks. There would be like explosions because people were like they were unstable and just building them as they went, and like they would fall over and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
It seemed a lot.
It was a lot more
planned
about
out.
like people dying as a side effect of the severe poverty.
Yeah. Like the impoverished zones didn't seem particularly unsafe. There was like a friendly
Right.
neighborhood vibe going on.
And people
Right.
were generally like depressed and isolated,
Yeah.
and only were able to like have community through this virtual world. Whereas in the movie, people were basically like, "Hey, let's band together and help fight against this, or let's all go in the street with our crew and be kung fu fighting against this unknown threat." I didn't get that sense of isolation in the same way from the
No.
movie. But it's also a Spielberg movie.
It's a Spielberg
these
movie.
movies are generally like upbeat and feel great outside of like Schindler's List, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure even in
Munich,
Schindler's List,
yes.
everybody in the background is like looking pretty cheerful
Yeah.
and like happy compared to how it really was. Yeah, it was just like as far as the world building, like obviously all of it went into the like the wow of the Oasis and everything, which I was pretty into. I think all those like introductory shots where it kind of like scanned through the different zones of the planets and stuff, and he kind of gave the narration of like, you like this, you could go here, you like this, you could go here. I was like, oh, this is cool, this is fun. It's kind of like a weird Inception-y kind of camera ride through the world. And I guess I just got kind of bored of it pretty quick. It just seemed like
Yeah.
one of those Lord of the Rings battles.
It's like I was saying to Bobby, I wasn't thinking about how you'd be watching a video game for most of the movie. Like,
Oh, yeah,
just
yeah,
the
yeah.
way it looked. And
Yeah.
like, I guess I was imagining it looking a lot more more realistic or more the people looking more like people.
But
In the
Yeah.
Oasis.
Yeah, in the Oasis, as opposed to like you're just watching a full-on CG world, which of course that makes sense. That's what it would be if it was all in virtual reality.
Yeah.
But
it just seemed more like it's like 2010s anime characters instead of like realistic depictions of what that would look like.
right, yeah.
If I was put off by that.
Because I definitely found myself during the movie being like, I want more scenes outside of the
Yeah.
Oasis. I wanted it like
The real
more
world
like
stuff,
the real
yeah.
actors and
Mm.
real stuff going on.
Yeah. The two worlds bouncing back and forth was a little jarring, and it felt like the stakes of when they need to like respawn or whatever is just like, oh, you lose your stuff. It's like, okay, that's pretty
Yeah,
low
but I feel
stakes.
like that's more explained in the book, or at least I felt like I had a
Right.
better understanding of it, where people are working for years to like build up what they have.
Yeah.
And if you lose that all, and people are living their whole lives in the Oasis, so
Mm.
if you lose what you've built up over years in the Oasis, it is.
It's like
that
you
is
can't
huge.
travel even to other planes. So in the book, like Wade could only go to the school planet because he didn't have money to leave.
Oh, I forgot about
Okay.
that.
So
Like,
Yeah.
there's
unless you
restrictions
worked.
on where you can
Yeah.
go.
Whereas like in the movie, it was like, oh, he's really poor, so he has to like pick up more coins than somebody else when they were like having the race.
So the scene where the bad guy is he's like the coffee boy, and he's like, oh, you could have a platinum membership or whatever.
Yeah.
In the book, does that actually happen where people are like, the more money you have, the more
No, that's-
shit you get in the...
That's what they're fighting to maintain, is that doesn't exist. That it's like open to everybody, but it's more like it's like an open capitalistic market. Like people go and work and make money, or they don't. But there are big time restrictions on people that are poor in there, in terms of like you don't have as good of equipment, so you can't be as good of a player unless you're really good at it. Like our protagonist in the movie, but like the main character in the book gets out of school and he can't do anything but like go to the library or watch movies or something like that.
That's right. That's how he
And
gets
that's-
so
Yeah.
deep into the research.
And he's...
Whereas all of his friends are like, oh, we're going to go off on this adventure and on a quest and try to find this artifact or try to do whatever, and he can't afford to even like leave the planet.
So his limitation is his strength. But he's got Wi-Fi in a junkyard?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean it's like
Okay.
everybody does, I guess. But
Okay.
that's another thing in the book is he like pretty much immediately, as soon as he has money, leaves there and leaves to
Leaves
go
the
to
stacks.
Columbus, Ohio, where like the epicenter of all this stuff is.
Okay.
Yeah, where he gets some fast connection and all
Yeah.
the gear. And he has a much longer falling out with Artemis.
Yeah, it's like a
Over
chunk
the-
of the book.
Over the rebellion aspect?
Over the like being a psychopath and like being like, I'm in love with you.
Oh, so in the
Sometime,
book they
like-
play up his doofy like hero charming like idiocies as like she's actually like
Yeah.
fuck you,
No,
bro.
she's like, you're getting too close. This is a competition. We're
Okay.
in competition with each other. We're done. And like doesn't answer any of his messages until like the climax of the movie or of the book.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so he goes into, like, as I recall, a fairly long depression.
Yeah,
Oh, that's actually way more interesting about
Yeah,
that
I was
character
waiting
than I
for
think.
that part of
Yeah.
the movie. And then when in the movie they meet very early and they just hit it off right away. I mean,
we're part of the rebellion.
Yeah. It's like-
Okay.
So that, to me, that was disappointing. It really
Yeah.
changed the kind of character arc.
So the little bombing of the stacks was like his moment of realization of like, oh, there are real world consequences to this like
Right.
shadow company or whatever. Like,
Yeah, and I feel like, again, in the book, that was a lot more of a, like, whoa, they, like, took this step where they went outside of the Oasis and they're a real world.
Yeah.
okay.
Like, I mean, that seemed like a bigger trespass than in the movie.
Yeah.
Where they're just like grabbing guns and being like, we need to take care of something again.
Yeah, the little like his like little minion people that ran around in the world finale or whatever, like
Yeah.
Bangs, like it's basically the same character from the Blade Runner remake. It's like just get a chick with bangs, send her out there, kick everyone's ass.
Yeah.
Like that was kind of weird. It didn't seem like the throngs of this big corporation were that imposing. Like they had these drones. He had one little like hit service and I know that he had this fleet of like this army of people that were like working on all fronts, but it never felt like that big of a threat for whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean, did anything in the movie feel like a threat at any point? It kind of felt like they just were constantly falling into the right position, and I mean, it's a Spielberg like feel good family movie.
Yeah, I don't know. Just I guess a missed opportunity for like such an interesting idea
Yeah,
to like just run it through the normal maze of like it's just a guy who meets girl and earns the keys kind of movie.
there's also she was very quick in the movie to be like, oh, you know everything about this, you should just win.
Yeah.
And like in the book, they're very competitive, like the whole way through.
It
It's
seemed
like,
weird where they were like, no, we're the people who aren't in a clan. Like that's the thing is we're all like
Yeah.
these solo dolo people, and we're very proud of that. That they fell into kinship, which I like. That it's like you resist so hard, and then you end up in the family of outsiders. That's very Breakfast Club. I like that, but it just seemed like it happened like just by accident, like from scene to scene. It's like, nope, now I'm telling you all my intel. Now it's why are you doing that?
They didn't even seem to compete with each other much.
No.
They were just like, oh yeah, you're cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, they more in the book do that out of necessity of like, I think it's after the explosion in the stacks where it's like, oh, guys, he just killed somebody, or somebody just got killed. Like we need to be looking out for each other a little bit here and make sure these guys like don't get, or basically make sure they lose as fast as possible. Yeah, it didn't seem like the stakes were that high in this one.
I was also surprised that the police came at the end.
Like where were they the whole time?
Well, there was like an IOO police force that raided the warehouse, right? There was like a SWAT team of people with guns.
Yeah, but they didn't care
They
about
weren't
that.
the
But this one
police.
dude had a pistol, so then the police all poured in to take him out of the.
That was weird.
Yeah, I just assumed police didn't exist in this reality
Yeah.
because of everything we'd seen so far.
Right, it was very lawless.
Like a Norm Macdonald Real Cops situation.
So I know we all like caught the Battletoads popping up a lot in that movie, and trying to in the credits we were trying to figure out like, so it's this as a Spielberg like Warner Brothers backed kind of thing, like were they going for properties that they already could kind of have the rights to? Did this fall under some type of parody type like Tiny Toon Adventures thing where you can just like throw a Casablanca reference in there because it's like whatever, we don't care?
Right.
Or was it mostly stuff that was already in-house ownership?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was surprised to see Chucky so prominently displayed.
Yeah, I don't know enough about who owns what properties to know.
I
what they
don't
were
either,
paying for
but
and
I
what
didn't
was
see any
included.
Disney on that, and I definitely saw the Iron Giant.
There's a lot of Back to the Future.
There's like,
Saw a pulse rifle.
yeah.
Yeah. Make It Godzilla.
Mm-hmm.
And Gundam stuff.
And there was definitely a lot of like pulling the themes in the score from like these other movies. So we had like the Godzilla theme and the Back to the Future theme, and there's a couple of the Shining, the whole Shining scene.
Oh yeah, that was interesting.
So basically, going into like at least from the jump when they go into Shining Planet or whatever. That was like footage from The Shining that they just threw those characters into, which was cool.
Right? Yeah.
I liked that, and it seemed a fun like, oh cool, we get to watch Spielberg like basically have a good excuse to remake or like walk his characters through The Shining, which is probably one of his favorite movies. It was like kind of a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
But like very weird. Not really sure the legality of this. Like, does this all kind of fall under like parody, kind of intellectual property?
They did. I mean, they in the credits at the end, they definitely were listing off like
The RoboCops and the Spawn and stuff like that. Weird.
Maybe
So
it's like when someone puts a video on YouTube, but they reverse the image so the bots don't take it down. Maybe that was like backwards Shining.
Spielberg's like, we got the trick figured out. I've been on YouTube.
No one's gonna know what this is.
Been watching backwards Shining on there.
Oh man, I'm really starting to want to tap out of like the nerdosphere of like the reference game. Like, I feel like I've spent a lot of my life packing my head with like knowing this stuff, and then when I watch a movie about knowing this stuff, I'm like, fuck this stuff. I don't want to know about the fucking Atari game where the first Easter egg was. Like, why did I already know that?
Yeah.
That's so stupid. What a waste of a life.
And for whatever reason, I swear, reading the book made it much more pat yourself on the back for catching it, whereas the movie I felt more was like you were
It's a little more disgusting.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it was from their introduction, CGI characters like shouting over each other about what they know about the main character, or the whatever his name is, the creator of the Oasis.
Yeah.
I did like how, at least from my perspective, for the most part, there weren't a bunch of big time actresses. It's like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it wasn't the A list of young Hollywood or whatever.
Maybe it's just because I'm way out of loop.
Well, there was. I mean, everybody's recognizable in there, and
Yeah.
like we had the girl from Mural and the Dying Girl as the main chick, and the fucking Ben Mendelsohn guy. I hate him. Like
Who's
the
that?
main bad guy.
Oh yeah.
Cannot stand him. He's been in a bunch of stuff lately as the patent bad guy. Rogue One being one of them, and one of the Batman movies and stuff. Like his little lispy, like, oh, he's in Darkest Hour. Yeah, this fucking guy is everywhere lately, and he's driving me
I could have
nuts.
really done without T.J. Miller in that movie.
Yeah.
He was just annoying from the start, and part of that annoyance may have been emphasized by like the theater just cracking up forcibly at every one of his jokes. Drove me nuts.
The main kid is Cyclops from one of the X-Men
Oh, okay.
versions.
Oh, that's right.
So
I was
like,
trying to figure out where I recognize him from.
it's not super A-list shit necessarily, but I don't
Who's
know.
the Halliday? The guy who played Halliday? Is he?
That's a Spielberg homie. He's the dude from Bridge of Spies. He's in Dunkirk.
Oh, that's right.
He was the BFG.
All movies I have not seen.
He's like a British actor who's been
Yeah, he's like a real actor.
yeah, he's been like Academy Award winning
Really?
dude.
I did not see an Academy Award winning
Not
performance.
in this, no. I mean, I like that he played like a Steve Jobs meets Willy Wonka kind of dude.
Got a Crispin Glover vibe.
Yeah, he's kind of pulling a weird.
Seriously.
Yeah, but I don't know. For a Spielberg movie, there was not like the stunt casting. I mean, Jude Law wasn't in it or whatever,
Right.
but like there was this shot in the beginning where they were introducing the world and him dying and leaving the message, and they were going to all the students with their iPads and seeing the reactions to the news, and for whatever reason, in one of these school shots, the camera drifts past the girl from that Chris Evans Babysits a Genius Kid movie that came out a couple months ago.
Okay.
And then right behind her was another child actor from like
The girl from Ouija.
yeah, the
Yeah.
crazy face chick from Ouija. I was like, is he gonna do this? Is he gonna like cameo his favorite little like actors from this and that in
That's
this movie?
right. When I saw her, I was
weird.
like, are we in a Ouija moment in this?
Yeah.
Or what's going to happen?
It did not something that I noticed the rest of the time, but that was kind
That
of
was
like
strange.
you put those two right next to each other and they didn't have any lines. Like
It's weird, too, that, like, Simon Pegg in that movie, not no small actor at this point,
Right.
but, like, he had, 4 lines in the
Yeah.
movie?
lines, really trying to act as hard as he could with those 4 lines though. He's like there's like a scene where he's like, oh, I'm sad, so I'm gonna like really pretend I'm fighting back some tears.
Yeah.
Like, damn, dude, you're going for the Academy Award here.
It's a little too much.
Well, a thing that we like to do on the Movie Babies is movie baby things, which is to combine universes and make everything one. And I feel like this has already been done for this movie.
Yeah, that's what this movie was.
That's what this movie was. I feel like Movie Babies can end now. We're done. All we needed was Ready Player One to come and do this properly.
What if we combined it with The Matrix, though? That would
Oh,
just...
okay. It's a Matrix simulation in a Rick and Morty simulation.
Yeah, like, what if the whole time the Oculus didn't even exist, or the Oasis didn't exist, it was just Keanu Reeves being jacked in to the Matrix. this was another ploy. It's like the girl in the red dress. He was just distracted by this adventure.
But not to be outdone by Steven Spielberg, if we were to movie babies this, if at the end Wade, when he gets the keys to the kingdom, if it's like, what are you going to do? If you won the Oasis, what would you do with it? How would you run it?
Wow. That's a big question. Would you listen to Simon Pegg and take his advice?
What was his advice?
What was it immediately? There were three things they did, right? They
hired him as a consultant.
Hired him as a consultant for a quarter.
Okay.
And they shut down the centers, the like labor centers,
Right.
which is like makes sense, right?
They closed it 2 days a week or something.
They closed it for 2 days a week. That's bogus. Wouldn't have done that. What about all the people that's their only place for like
School?
Yeah, come on. Yeah, no school 2 days a week. It's closed Tuesdays, Thursdays, but now you got school on Sundays and Saturdays.
Shit!
I don't know. I think like the like altruistic good version of that is like, or what the main characters are fighting for is to like just keep everything the same, right? You're also winning like $500 billion with that, so I think I would probably not give a shit what was going on in that virtual world. I would. What did they have in their apartment at the end? There was like a beanbag chair and a pinball machine. Like, I'd be happy with that.
Yeah, I'm good. Did he forcibly make her dress like the gal from Big Trouble in Little China, though? That was kind of weird at the
That was
end.
really
I didn't
weird.
catch that.
She's like in a little pink kind of like Big
Yeah.
Trouble in Little China dress, and like she had like little Princess Leia buns. I was like, what are you?
And it ends with her
Doing?
giving like this really uncomfortable look,
Yeah.
too. That was...
I'm a kept woman now. I used to be a fucking
Revolutionary.
Yeah. She was part of the revolution.
weird
Do you think
stuff.
that face tattoo guy's still getting their groceries?
Yeah, probably. There's apparently this sting operation of this big self-help group in New York that Lane was hipping me to about the two lead actresses from the show Smallville were kind of these recruiters for this like basically a sex cult that was guised as this kind of self-help like empowerment thing for women, where it's like, come into our fold, we'll teach you how to be a badass, but you're going to basically be a slave to higher up in the pyramid scheme. So each higher up has like six slaves, as they call them.
This is a real thing.
Yeah, this is a real thing.
Ugh.
Where in certain levels of it, you would be owned by the main guy who branded his women
Ugh.
with these like tattoos with his like initials and like the gal from Smallville's like initials hidden in them and stuff. These weird little anagrams and stuff. I haven't read the full article. I've just kind of scanned it. This is a better Lane question than like, you don't want to get this information from me. But I was like, is the revolution kind of like, was everyone have to be forcibly tattooed to be in the revolution? Is that what was happening there?
They all
She was
had to
like,
match
I'm
the
tattooed on the
birthmark,
eye. You all got to be tattooed.
Although that guy's face tattoo is way more prominent than her birthmark on her face. Like,
I did like how they called it out as a Lane tattoo in the movie.
Oh, they
Yeah.
did?
Yeah.
That's good.
dude with the lame tattoo.
Yeah.
It's
Dude
like
with the
scanning
Mike Tyson
lame
tattoo.
tattoos.
Also, if you are going to be part of the revolution, like really, I guess maybe you could have got it before, but you wouldn't want such identifying mark.
Right.
Yeah, you
Maybe-
probably don't want to tag your van with like really identifiable.
Right.
Or send that guy out for groceries.
Yeah, at all.
Yeah.
He's not your grocery guy. He's your pickup Wade, like in the middle of the night, bag his head and throw him in the van guy for sure.
No, you're right. He's not the go to the farmer's market.
No.
And
No.
They did have good produce though in the
They
future.
did.
That was
Yeah, I
interesting.
want to know where they grew that. I didn't
Yeah.
really get a feel for farmlands in this post-apocalyptic world.
Right.
The roof had all kinds of greenery growing on it when they were hanging out there.
Ah,
Yeah, I didn't get a sense of like the decay and the nastiness that I was
So
hoping
nice.
for from the real world, such that it would juxtapose against the video game, like in a much more like, oh, of course you'd want to
Right.
be in
Well, I
there.
mean, that's the whole point, that people spend their time in the Oasis because there's nothing going on. There's nothing left for them in the real world, so
Yeah.
they escape to this.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe if it wasn't meant to be such a kids movie, they could have painted that part of it a little more clearly. But it just seemed like a thing to do because you were bored, rather
Yeah.
than like a thing
Right.
you did because there's nothing else.
Also, I mean, I thought the coolest part of the movie was the beginning when he's like going down the fireman's pole, the stacks, and then he has like a rope swing and all kinds of like waving to the neighbors.
Yeah.
It did feel like treehouse community vibe.
which was cool.
Yeah,
and I
rad.
would have been like, that's the end of the movie. You want that. Like, that's what you're trying to achieve. You already have
towards.
it.
Also, he put a lock on his rope at the end of that sequence, which I did not understand. He slides down a rope at the end, and then he like padlocks it up before he heads to his van.
Whoa, I missed that. He
No,
padlocked the...
That's what I think. That's what happened. Maybe
Alright.
I saw this wrong, but I don't know what good it's going to do to padlock a rope.
Don't want anybody swinging on my goddamn rope, Agnes.
Yeah.
See what you're doing. We also had collective beef with the fact that the physics of being in the Oasis and having to do physical movement to motivate your character, but then cut to the real world and people were like cowering on the floor or like in a van suspended by wires. Some people were just sitting in like a big hamster wheelchair. Like,
Yeah.
there was no...
It was completely inconsistent
Yeah.
in how that worked.
Very
Yeah.
strange.
And I really wanted one of those people running down the street playing in the game to just get nailed by a car.
Yeah,
It
so
would've been
there's...
so like some consequence of that. There's people, every person on the street on the sidewalk is like, you know, roped into this thing.
Yeah, it had it played with the scenario that you have to be on one of these track pads because you have to constantly be moving or whatever in
Yeah.
physical space. Like, it would have been funny for the people that couldn't afford it to be actually like running around in actual space.
Right.
But in the game, so there was all these like incidences in the real world where people are getting hit by cars and like
Running
falling out of
into each
windows.
other, yeah.
Yeah. That would have been a more like, oh, this is kind of an epidemic problem. Like, that would have been a more interesting detail, I guess. But no, everybody seemed like no one was addicted to beyond like their ability. They never played with any of the things of like
Yeah.
the horrors of.
Yeah, and we saw a little bit in the very brief introduction to Wade's like home life with his aunt,
Right.
And like, so yeah, they kind of touched on like how he was losing their money in the game, but again, they didn't really go into that enough to show kind of the horrors of what this,
Yeah, it was
what the real life could provide. I guess it comes
Mhm.
back to that the real world didn't seem so bad.
no.
Yeah.
But then
It's
this, as like this virtual reality world, was also not necessarily that bad either, because everybody was using it in an effective way. Like, it was the economy of the world, it was the education for the world. It was like this pretty helpful tool. So it wasn't like that was bad. It was just this bad guy corporation that was fucking everything up.
So, are the dystopian movies not making things look grim enough, or is real life getting too grim?
That our dystopian
Like,
movies
this movie
are like,
came out in the
eh.
80s when people have been like, oh, fuck. This looks bad. And
Yeah,
we're just
maybe
getting a
you're
little
right.
too numb.
Maybe you're right.
Oh, no. We need the Oasis.
What else really kind of seemed bizarre about that? If you were in the Oasis and you can also like build all this stuff, like they had this subplot where they mentioned this concept that H was also like a commissioned builder for things.
That was very strange, right?
Yeah.
Like, she could fix the Akira bike mentally or like within the game.
What?
Or, like, how
Yeah.
did repair
How
work?
did you guys interpret
Yeah,
that?
I don't know. I wanted to dig deeper on that.
Yeah.
And there were, yeah.
Is it like equivalent to like people who are into Minecraft or whatever? Like, they've been able to like hack the game to like do things for other players to where it's like, oh, that's the only person who can like make the orb of Lala, and I need that person to like make me one. Is it?
Because, I mean, she made an Iron Giant, which was like, she was basically making her own like artifacts
Right.
for the game and like fixing or rebuilding artifacts that had been created as part of the
I would
game.
have liked to at least see some scene where H was doing some sort of work to make that happen.
Yeah.
It just seemed like it opened up the possibility that H could have armed the whole resistance with all these non-approved
Right.
Oasis weapons and
Yeah.
like, things or whatever. To where, again, it like lowers the stakes of like, you've got this pretty supreme badass on your team who
It's
makes
just-
an Iron Giant, but what else could they have made for you? Or like,
But you did at least get the impression that building that Iron Giant was like a big job,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
Like
it's kind of happening in real
been working
time.
on it for a long time, or some.
So was she just having to find like a spring and bring it back and like put the spring in
Yeah,
the
I don't
Iron
know.
Giant and like
Unclear.
a piece of sheet metal and like
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of like actual work happening in the Oasis. Like we saw guys jackhammering.
Right, that's
and
what's
stuff.
confusing me. That like, so you had people like literally jackhammering and lifting heavy stuff,
Yeah.
but then you also have H able to like fix the Akira bike in 10 minutes. Like,
Right.
Right. There
that's
was
no
like
problem.
a totaled motorcycle.
Yeah, and there's some,
So-
wink at it and it comes back to life.
Yeah. What the hell?
and so the design of the Oasis was such that like you have to have some abilities, like you can't, unlike a game where like your character can like have magic spells and things like that, and it's like I don't know how to do magic spells, but my character in Secret of Mana does. Like what these characters could like achieve and unlock things or whatever, but like they didn't have like real world understanding of.
Right.
Mhm.
So that would be a question like, was H's ability to fix that bike, was it something that they unlocked within the game, or if they like lost the character and started over, would they have some ability?
Was that her own mechanical proclivity?
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah,
And I have no idea.
that's weird.
It is weird, and it was inconsistent
Yeah.
throughout the movie.
I mean, similar to how sometimes people had to run in the real world to run in the Oasis, and sometimes they could be sitting in a chair or dangling from wires.
Yeah.
Or be made to think that they're still in the Oasis because they took off their helmet, but they didn't really think. When
That
they
part's
got the
really
bad guy, I was like, that's a cool idea, but wait a minute, how the fuck would they have done that?
He was a noob.
Yeah. Can we talk about how his password was Bossman69? Guy that's like the head of the most evil corporation.
His like whole little like his little minions and everything, like nobody was like trying to usurp his authority the whole time. He was just like this fucking frat boy shithead,
Yeah.
like head of this company.
It was kind of weird though how they made him like not that mean. How he had to have the lady with bangs be like the heavy,
Yeah.
Right.
and I thought that was weird. Like why try and soften his amount of evil?
Right. Or like why not give him some reason to be doing this? Like I thought when they were like his team of like little researchers was like feeding him the John Hughes lines and stuff so he could like get in good
Yeah.
with Wade was like, oh, okay, so he's totally got this whole psychological game of like how he needs to accomplish and everything, but like what is he really trying to accomplish? He just wanted money?
He just wants to monetize it, but it's like it seemed like a pretty weak motivation the way it was laid out in
Yeah.
the movie.
There is. Did you read this? There's a story written by the guy who wrote The Martian that was included in. I think it was included in my copy of Ready Player One. It's officially canon, where his like it's the story that he wrote. I believe, if I remember this correctly, it shows the motivation of the head of
Whoa.
IOI
Okay.
being he wants to shut the Oasis down because it like I think it ruined the lives of his family members or something like that.
Okay, so he's got a
Whoa.
personal stake.
Yeah,
in
so
it.
and it's interesting because that story like kind of humanizes, because as I recall in the book he was more evil. He was more of like a detestable character, and that this kind of additional story made you realize like, oh, he has a motivation, and it's like,
maybe you could get in line with that if you
yeah,
wanted
like
to.
you can at least see that perspective.
That's interesting.
So basically he had Artemis's backstory.
Right. As I recall it,
Yeah.
again, it's a couple years ago, but
Interesting.
which was interesting. But they definitely didn't touch on that
No.
in this.
No, they did not. Also, it seemed like there was a lot of double beats in the movie where they'd have to do something in the game and then have to do it in the real world. Like his speeches, like he had like a rallying speech to like get all the avatars to come and like
Yeah.
fight the magnet wall, and like that was like really kind of ham-fisted and like he was like in the name of this, and it was like what the fuck are you talking about? Like this is not a galvanizing speech. This is very hack and lame. And then in the real world, he kind of had to do the same thing. Like later, I was like, you already did that. Like, come on, Spielberg, you know not to double beat. This is bad.
Yeah, the whole ending, I was pretty disappointed it didn't go more the way of the book.
So, okay, let's get to this. How does the book end?
Book ends with like they call upon that big battle scene is all going to go on. There's the same deal with like everyone getting killed by that bomb and the extra life thing. But they all meet at it's like there's a whole other thing that goes on where Wade imprisons himself on purpose inside of one of those centers where Artemis was trapped.
Right, like in real life.
In real life, he gets himself like committed into one of these centers under a false identity
To try to find her?
no, she's not in there at all.
Oh,
They
interesting.
haven't met at that point.
They still haven't met in real
Okay.
life, and he does it as a way to like hack into their system or to like get inside their system to reroute the encryption to hack into the mainframe.
Beam it back into the dish, Mr. Big Limo.
It's
See, we're gonna shit talk this movie that's all references by sitting here.
yeah,
and
I've
referencing
seen all of our
things.
stupid movies we love. He does it as a way to get access into their computers, and I don't remember why. I think it's to like maybe wipe a file or change the identity they have for him or something like
Oh,
that.
because they know who he
Because
really
they know
is.
who he is.
Yeah.
But I could be totally wrong on that. But either way, it ends up with the culmination where he finally in real life meets all those other characters is at Augie's house or Og's house, the other founder of
Yeah,
the
okay,
company.
okay.
Is like, hey, you probably need some help, and I've got just the thing. Come to my place, and like he is sent out, like
Right, because he has like a safe space for them to
yeah,
all...
he's got this mansion where
And
they all go
he's
to.
a known, alive and well character
Yeah.
throughout the story.
He's like popping into the Oasis at certain points, and like
How come he's not being swarmed by everybody being like, tell us what you know? Because he's such a linchpin of the...
yeah,
I mean, he's the only living designer.
That's the thing is like he's basically he wasn't a designer of the game. He was just like a co-founder of the company.
Okay, gotcha.
So he like doesn't know anything about it. But they all culminate back at his house where they have big like fancy rigs,
Yeah.
and they jump into those, and then that's like where the final showdown goes down. And it's just like the big battle.
Okay, where
There's no chase scene at the end where like the company is like chasing these people down.
it all happens in the game.
Yeah, it all happens in the game.
Interesting.
And I feel like
If I
there's...
recall
yeah, I
correct.
think so. And I feel like there's more to the battle. They keep on bringing in all kinds of different...
Yeah. So that's another thing is everybody has these artifacts that they've won from different points in the story in the book, where it's like they have each one of them has like a robot. When for the first 5 people that like got
Right,
the
yeah.
keys, they each got like a robot of their choosing that would then turn into like so there's what's the name of it, the Japanese character Ultraman. Somebody's
Okay,
got an
yeah.
Ultraman
Nice.
that ends up being like a big pinnacle point.
Nice.
And the battle is a much bigger, more defined thing.
Okay, so just a more of an action figure battle than
Yeah.
in the movie.
But it is they're trying to get through the shield that they put around
shield
the
thing is
final,
still
like,
there.
challenge, right?
Yeah. And it still does the same thing where it's like I think that's why he hacked in was to get around the shield maybe.
Okay. Yeah, I don't remember.
But there's still the bomb where everyone else gets killed, shield goes down, and then Wade is still there because he's got the extra life from one of the other challenges.
Okay. I didn't understand how he like when he first won the first key, how he like ushered in the other people to like also win. Like so there was the scoreboard had like multiple winners.
So yeah, it's just like first place goes to so there were points awarded based on sequence of getting through the challenges.
So like
So it's still a race, like there were
Okay.
checkpoints to get through, but in order to win you had to go through all those checkpoints.
when he went backwards and the whole world saw that he went backwards or whatever, then everybody just also went backwards on the race, and then individually each like won a place.
Well, it wasn't all being televised live at that point.
Oh,
That was
okay.
only for like the final challenge.
So he just told his homies who told his
So
homies.
Artemis saw him in her rearview mirror, and then he told the other people.
And then as far as these clues that they each got for the next key, those were all individual clues or collective. Like once a key was gotten, one main clue to the next key was given.
Well,
Right,
you have to
for
if
everyone.
if you if you get the key, then you get the clue.
And the clues weren't public information.
No.
No.
But the company found them out and were working their own angles, right? Because how else did they know to go to the Atari planet?
I think with the third one in the movie, the way they did that was that they had broken into, like, they had stuff written out, and they broke into the Revolution, the Matrix Revolution.
Oh, okay.
And so they just grabbed that stuff.
Okay.
In the book, it's more a matter of, like, it had gone on forever where nobody had gotten anything, and then once that first person overcomes a challenge, it's like, oh, because one person has proven this is possible, now more people are going to figure it out, because it's like, the person that found it was a student, so maybe it has something to do with, like, being in the student's location, and people just, like, started filing through, and the people that were, like, the more active or better players just figured stuff out faster.
Okay. When Wade wins the adventure Atari game,
Mm-hmm.
and then goes into Holiday's childhood room and has that whole sequence and everything, is the Nolan character like vanquished by that point? Because in the movie he's like tracks them down, he holds a gun to his head. At the end he's like pointing a gun at him, and then he's just like, oh, the egg is so beautiful, now I'm not going to shoot. Like, how does he get vanquished in the book?
I think it's more, I from what I remember, is more just like that at that point they're safe at Ogg's house, and I think Ogg even comes into the battle at the end. Am I misremembering that?
I can't remember. I remember him showing up. I think it was at the dance club.
Dance,
I think that's like his dance club in the book, and he shows up and is like, "No, we're not fighting."
Yeah,
on
just
my
like
dance
shuts
floor.
everything down. He like pulls the switch on the whole thing. But I feel like at that point in the book, there's just not that risk. It's more a risk of like, oh, we can't let them win before we win. It's not a matter of like
because
they
they have
guns
this
and
shield
they're
up
coming for us.
around the final key, and they're going to figure it out eventually. We need to get everyone together through the shields.
Yeah.
And again, I didn't like how they humanized the bad guy in the movie, making him like pause and.
He was just like, oh, they won, good for them.
Yeah.
Was that what was going on there?
I think so. Or there was a single tear that went down Wade's cheek, and that was and the yellow glow from his headset.
Yeah.
Seeing the egg was mesmerizing somehow.
I don't know. That was
I
really
didn't buy that
weird.
part.
What was the egg supposed to be? Was that a reference?
It's just like a Easter egg.
Okay, it's the Easter egg. Okay, gotcha.
And whoever gets the egg gets control of the Oasis.
Okay, so it's just a trophy, basically.
Yeah, it just represents that they won.
Okay.
Like that's what was
it's the aggro crag.
That was
piece of the
goal.
aggro crag.
But it was a big reveal in the book, and I guess in the movie too, that whoever won would have the ability to shut the whole thing down.
Yeah.
Okay. They didn't know that before.
No.
Yeah, he's basically like, so you have control now, so if you want to shut it all down, you can. Or you can just do whatever you want with it.
Are we to believe that Halliday secretly wanted it to be shut down?
I don't think
I don't know.
so.
Because I think I would have Snake Plisskened it and just hit.
You would have shut it
I would
down?
have shut it down.
Yeah.
Public enemy number one.
Yeah, all right. Take your money and run. Shut it down. Build my own oasis.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think what happens in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory at that scene. He wins the chocolate factory.
He has the fake contract thing in the movie version of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh, right. And he's like, don't sign it. And that's how that was the test.
Yeah.
Okay. And then when he wins, his family moves into the chocolate factory?
Yeah,
Is that how that
they
is?
move the house into the chocolate. Oh, I'm maybe mixing up the book and the movie because I read and watched them recently. But I think they move the entire house into the chocolate factory.
Okay.
That's cool.
To just kind of like keep things kind of how they were.
Yeah, but then I watched two versions of the movie too because I read the book to Elliot recently, and then I watched the old movie and the new movie.
Oh, fuck. I forgot about the Johnny Depp
Yeah,
one.
it's not worth watching.
In that one, I recall him just being a like pesty house guest that just at the end he just like comes and hangs out with his family all the time.
I don't remember. No comment.
Wow.
All right. Anyway, my point being, with whatever they were trying to like, reference from that movie or whatever, it's just trying to like see if they diverged with the idea. But this did just seem like a really big action adventure version of Willy Wonka.
Yeah. Yeah.
To which I was kind of expecting like a. Remember at the end of Happy Death Day when they're like, oh, you know what this reminds me of? It's kind of like Groundhog's Day. And that's kind of how they end the movie.
That's right.
I was kind of like, for a reference movie, I was kind of waiting for them to give their biggest reference, like a name and a face, to be like, thanks, Roald Dahl. But no, they just took that one.
They just took it. Yeah,
Okay,
I mean,
that's fine.
into the pop culture stuff as these main characters were, they seem pretty clueless about most of what was going on. Right?
Yeah.
Like, there was no. They seemed like idiots bumbling through the whole thing.
Yeah, it was a lot of idiocy. Okay, so having read the books, having seen the movie, what's your rating of the book? What's your rating of the movie? And would you recommend moviegoers read the book?
Wow. What's our scale?
Oh, our
Movie
system
Babies
Our system
scale?
is the same movie baby scale, so we'll rate this top of the line, sold on either medium, will be like a lot. Medium to lukewarm will be In Space with Zombies, and no go will be I Love Robots. For the book, the rating is.
I would give like a lot.
Okay.
The book. I really enjoyed reading it, and yeah, I felt wrapped up in the adventure and in the relationships, and I got a kick out of the references and feeling like, hey, I know what they're talking about there.
Nice.
Like that, I mean, it was enjoyable. I definitely dug reading the book.
So it's just a good adventure, get the keys to the castle kind of movie wrapped in a cool reference 2018 kind of meme culture kind of like apparatus, just as a way to give it color.
Yeah, but it's for some reason reading the book, it didn't feel like this 2018. Like I said, I really got caught up in this. Like, oh, I've lived this. I know. Like, I have to research this. I know this, and I felt like I was like I guess maybe it makes you identify, like you feel like one of the main characters because you have studied these references by living through it.
Oh, gotcha.
So you feel like kind of part of this team.
I guess what I mean by that is like they let the referentialness do the heavy lifting of their world building. So Ready Player One as a video game concept or whatever is pretty generic, but like wrapped in it is like, oh, it's all these references to things. Like that's what gives the world of Ready Player One its kind of colors. Like, oh, Goro's right there, and there's an alien, and someone's driving a hovercraft or whatever, or a hoverboard. Like, they let those things do the world building work for them. But that's the joy of it, just kind of being a colorful version of an adventure story. It's like
it's still a good adventure pulp kind of novel. I would give it like a lot as well for the book. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, and the world. I mean, the world that they build, it's layered in all these references, but the world is really interesting in the book that they build, like both the real world and the Oasis, and it has a little bit of that kind of Black Mirror vibe of like near enough future that you're like, okay, I could see how this is how things would go down.
And the like proxy of it being like kind of like the internet for now is like kind of an interesting like Twilight Zone take on it or whatever.
Yeah, just about how it's like, sure, this is technology and a system that doesn't exist currently, but it's not that much of a stretch, right? To think how, okay, yeah, I can see how the world could get bad enough that the real world situation would be like this, and that the virtual reality could get good enough that it would replace it, and it's like you can imagine that that's the way society would move.
Yeah.
And then that gives it like a sense of kind of realness that makes it more thought-provoking, I think.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I agree.
But the movie, if we were to rate that, and so I'll give it In Space with Zombies because I only read 60 pages of the book. Bear with me.
That's a pretty generous rating.
I bet if I had read more, I would have been like, oh, I like this. But yeah. But the movie, I would also do an In Space with Zombies about, because it was I almost enjoyed the whole apparatus of it being a good, interesting way to tell an adventure story. but I feel like the missteps were the ways that it oversimplified itself and tried to like undercut the things that were interesting about it just by jamming it into a more generic, like, we gotta get this to get this, and that's the end, and then we're there, and they fall in love, and bada bing, bada boom. It was like
Yeah.
a little too cut and dry. I've seen this before. I can predict what's gonna happen next. Just
Yeah.
kind of seemed like Minority Report.
Yeah, I would give it a pretty low. I hesitated to go all the way down, but I would give it a low in Space with Zombies.
Okay.
Just because I think there was enough good stuff there that it could have. I think if they had arranged things, like I spent a lot of the movie waiting and saying like to myself, oh, they're not doing it this way like it was in the book, so I wonder how they're going to pull off this next part. So that was kind of bothering me through the whole movie.
Right, I felt the same way, and I wondered to myself, like, would I see this differently if I wasn't constantly comparing it to the book? Because I would give it In Space with Zombies. Also, because I felt like it wasn't living up to the book. Most movies don't. But,
yeah, this one was very vocal about not giving a shit that it was not living up to the book. They just changed so much, especially for the. I wonder why they approached it that way.
Yeah.
Would you guys recommend people go to the movie first, and then maybe just kind of be able to experience that without those kind of nagging, like, oh, this isn't quite right?
If you were going to do both?
If you were interested enough in this as a property to like go all in on,
I would say, I would recommend seeing the movie and then reading the book.
Okay.
Because that's my suspicion of why they changed the adventures, was so it would be like more fun for people that had read the book, where you're not going to just know what happens. And I think they were trying to keep some of that suspense there, but it was a disservice to the layout of the adventure, I think, in the novel.
And there's not any real like, oh shit kind of stuff that the movie gives you. So like you're only getting more interesting detail from the book, right? Like watching the movie isn't a massive spoiler for the book because there's no real massive spoiler.
Just like maybe some of the character traits from when they meet in real life. Yeah. But those were not like. There is some suspense in the book about like, oh, maybe Artemis is like just a 40-year-old man, and like you really don't know till the end.
It's not someone that Wade is rubbing elbows with and the whole time, and you're like, oh, it was the guy down the street, like.
Right. It's not like.
They're strangers.
It's not Kevin Spacey or anything.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a pretty satisfying assessment. Let's get to the real meat of this, which is, do you guys remember, like, Battletoads was a really hard game, right? Like, that wasn't an easy game to play.
No. There were more than one Battletoads, right?
Yeah, there's two of them, and then there's also... Or no, Are there two Battletoads? There's definitely a Battletoads and Double Dragon game.
Oh, that's right.
Whoa, what?
Yeah.
Because they're both, what, Konami?
I guess.
Yeah. So it's like you can either be a Battletoad or you can be.
I never played it. I never had it.
Is it a Super Nintendo game?
It might be a Super Nintendo game. I think it is Super Nintendo, actually.
Was Battletoads a cross-platform thing? You could play it on Genesis or Nintendo?
I know I played it on Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
Can't speak for Genesis.
Oh, the original one was on NES.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. That's the one that was super hard.
That's one of my proudest NES moments, is I've beaten Battletoads,
nice.
I think twice.
Well done.
But it was purely by chance for the last level. It's hard.
So they're aliens?
Yeah.
This was a weird time in the post-Ninja Turtles cash grab where like there was biker mice from Mars, there was Snailians, there was Street Sharks. There was all these like anthropomorphic, like, how do we make an animal really muscular and mean and like potentially like tattooed and like very attitude-y, like, but then like there's like Bucky O'Hare and stuff, so it's like, well, they gotta be aliens, like, let's just make them aliens instead of mutants or whatever.
Is that like a Howard the Duck thing?
Yeah.
Where it's like, screw it, they're from another planet. Doesn't matter.
The Battletoads were from another planet, right?
Yeah.
And they fought robots.
Some were robots, but some also just like other animal characters.
Pigs.
There's pigs. There's weird warthog things, not too different from like Bebop, of Bebop and Rocksteady.
They were really just aping Ninja Turtles.
And they've got a buddy that's like on the ship communicating back to him. That's like a bird character, anthropomorphic bird. And then like one of the bad guys is like a weird rock and roll chick, like.
Just a human.
Yeah, just a human.
That's right. She's like a Ziggy Stardust kind of looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the main baddie is like a big rat guy.
What the fuck is up with Battletoads?
I love it. I don't know. I don't know
You
what's
have a
going on.
much better recollection of Battletoads.
I played it not too long ago.
Okay.
Was there a show?
I don't remember that.
I don't think there
There
was
wasn't
a TV
toys.
show.
There wasn't a show. It was like a low ranking game, right?
It's pretty infamous for being a difficult
Yeah.
I think it was a decent sized game when it came out, but it didn't do as well as like Earthworm Jim had like toys in a cartoon.
I remember that.
Like that.
Yeah, that's weird. I wonder if this is like a little teaser for like, oh, Battletoads is in development.
I would love that.
I think I would too. I don't know why. That's fascinating to me. Every time the Battletoads popped up in this movie, I was like, oh, that's fun.
All right,
that's kind of
here
fun.
we go.
Yeah, I like that.
I mean, that was a fun part of the movie. Is like spotting stuff.
Yeah.
And I appreciate, and this was in the book too, that like they didn't call stuff out. It was just like it kind of flies by, and if you catch it, you catch it.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you don't. And they aren't like winking at the camera.
Yeah.
I would say I would do a rewatch of this to be like, oh, I wonder what else was. Now I know where the scenes are to like look in the background for things, but I'll probably just read a Wikipedia thing about it.
Yeah.
Any other massive thoughts on Ready Player One? I feel bad that I'm not doing a good job of doing what Devin would do in this conversation. But when I think of what Devin would do, he'd just be like derailing the conversation even worse than I am. That was my attempt with the Battletoads conversation.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, Ready Player One. Go see it if you want to, but otherwise don't.
Yeah, read the book.
Yeah, read the book. Stay home. Read. It's a quick read.
All right, agreed. And that was Ready Player One. Thanks for listening to our Devinless episode. He's not officially gone. This is seldom going to happen, but I do challenge him to do an episode without me because, beat this, I guess, as the gauntlet is thrown down. Still gonna make him edit it. And I recorded this on one singular phone so that I don't have to do any editing. That was my gift to myself for being Devinless this week.
Good.
We got moviebabies.com. We got some other shit. I don't fucking know. Rate it. Say comments. I don't care. See you next time.